It's so funny when I enter Twitch chat and someone welcomes me by saying, "Hey there, parasocial." Half of me chose the handle parasocial work because the wordplay was funny. The other half did it sincerely, because there's an entirely different scope of socialization that occurs digitally. So I'm Para, this is parasocial work, and I'm going to be an irresponsible jackass by saying the digital age is not just a misinformation machine. I'm hardly the first person to say that the internet has changed us, but we rarely see that change, coupled with a change in the kinds of supports that people are offered. My thesis statement, if I'm ever going to have one, is that these changes in how we're socializing need to be coupled with a redress in how we support one another. And that includes a role for us as community. This video is examining what, exactly, are those shifting sands in socialization. Okay, so imagine an axis for me. Wait, no, this is a visual medium. Okay, let me draw an axis. On our x-axis, we've got behavioral phenomena. Entertainment, interaction, connection, relationship, by which I mean like closeness, not partnership, fixation, and obsession. Then, in this digital age, we have a kind of haphazardly constructed y-axis, directional phenomena. It's this engagement direction that is new in the digital space. We have our social, our ortho-social, and our parasocial. So social is traditional bidirectional. That means it goes two ways, and they have a reasonable expectation of it being, equally contributing to a conversation, or to a topic, or to whatever the heck they're doing. Orthosocial is an augmented bidirectional. That means there is technically some give and take. There's two or more parties, and there's bidirectional exchanges with at least somewhat of an expectation of there being some balance. In the digital space, this is augmented because it's either one, not timely, where one person sends a message and waits for the message to be received. The other way that this is different in the digital age is relationships where there's only maybe a chance of the second person's voice being heard, where we leave comments that might be read, we engage in chat that might be read, that might influence the other person socially, but really it's dominated by one direction. Parasocial means unidirectional. There is one direction to the exchange. There may be two or more parties involved in the social exchange, but only one party really has a reasonable belief that their message is being communicated and being received. There is what is called a felt reciprocity, where even though one person is sending a message, it feels like a social exchange. Making a video about sweet spots and risks, I realized that I could be exceptionally wrong. One man's trash is another man's treasure, ooh-woo, and all that. So I welcome your feedback and your self-awareness and your interpretation. But there are some obvious common threads. So, say you're a brand account, you're probably going for a parasocial approach. You're probably going for entertainment or interaction. Anything deeper than that would be risky and probably come across as weird. If you were a traditional media performer, like an actor, using online spaces, you're primarily communicating through your craft. But when you use online spaces, you're probably acting purely parasocially. Everything you're doing is probably going through an approval process. And having said that, you are still trying to create brand around who you are, creating a connection with your audience, because it's kind of what celebrities need to do online these days, to create a fan base. If you're an online creator, you are probably operating orthosocially. You're probably trying to speak to people through your work and responding to comments or liking them. Ultimately, whether you're going for entertainment or connection with your work really depends on the work that you do and the kind of creator you are. Very often, you'll slip between being entertainment and being closer to relationship status. An influencer I distinguish from a creator because they're someone who is trying to intentionally have rapport and trust that influences the behavior of their audience, you're probably acting more parasocially than orthosocially when you're an influencer. There are some creators out there who are aiming for something closer to a fixation or an obsession. Often those folks are financially depending on creating an environment where you are obsessed with them. And no shade, because get that bag. But there are certain types of creation that strongly encourage you to feel an intimacy that's well and truly beyond just connection. Probably the most obvious and largest reasons why parasocial is such a taboo topic is because it gets associated with an actual real risk. And that is the problem and the difficulty, we shall say, navigating fixation and obsessive behaviors, both for the person who's experiencing and for the people being subjected to that kind of behavior. And here's where I have a bone to pick. Fixation and obsession are not intrinsic features of parasocial engagement. If you spoke to any of the women in your life, they would probably be able to confirm for you that fixation and obsession are real dangers in socializing. For many people, being harassed and stalked or attacked even is a real risk in day-to-day life. It's statistically much more likely to be attacked by, stalked by, someone that you actually know IRL. The other difficult part of this is the fact that fixation and obsession are not inevitably going to lead to a dangerous outcome. Fixation's not usually something that people choose to have, and it's often coupled with this feeling of shame or embarrassment or no ill intentions or behaviors whatsoever that would put anyone else at risk. Having your blowbos, I get it. Having a phase where you're totally interested in someone's content, being there, it's an okay way to be, to have a fixation. But making someone else aware that they are your fixation, putting someone in a position where they need to respond to or be particularly cognizant of their well-being, that's an experience that can traumatize or isolate a person. It's a potentially horrific way for someone to have to live, even if they're not likely to be subject to harm physically. That, in and of itself, is potentially life-ruining. It potentially changes someone's entire life. So that all is to say that while not inherently bad, it's a risky fucking area to navigate around fixation and obsession. There's unique problems that are faced in orthosocial and parasocial fixations as well, because someone that is the subject to that fixation doesn't necessarily know the nature of the threat that it poses to them. Like, who is behind this username, or this weird trend in engagement, or this series of anonymous messages, or this string of emails. So when you have a matter of parasocial fixation that you're being subjected to, the likelihood of not being taken seriously is a real worry and can lead people to not putting any safety measures in place or to putting really inadequate ones in place. Hello, time traveling para here. It was also mentioned to me in the editing process that we've had very little time to measure the way that parasocial and orthosocialization can affect and hurt people. So sometimes this dismissal or underestimating of the risk is actually driven by the assumption that physical risks are the only real risks worthy of our attention. Despite being real and dangerous forms of abuse, it's kind of true that we as a community just routinely downplay the significance of psychological and emotional risks. How many times have you seen the comment, "I miss the old creator, you changed"? It's a little bit painful to see, right? If you grow as a content creator, if you change, especially if you move from being orthosocial to being parasocial, or if you move from being one type of content to another type of content that moves the behavioral arrow for you, there are repercussions socially. It can feel like a sense of betrayal. It can feel like being broken up with. It can feel like abandonment. Our connections and relationships in the social realm are just laden with these cultural assumptions about what is owed to you in return for showing the trust to have that social engagement. We've got these concepts about what's fair about what it means to be valued in that situation, and about what it means to be treated respectfully, we carry those through whether the social interaction, orthosocial interaction, or parasocial interaction is one that barely carries those expectations, because that's the nature of cultural norms. They're just kind of in our guts. They cause us to react to things. A betrayal of cultural norms, whether it's parasocially or socially, it can feel extraordinarily just like the distress we experience IRL. The final risk I want to bring up is having a poorly integrated idea of commercialization. Discussions around what it means to be a creator, what it means to engage online, often have preconceived ideas about what it is to market, what it is to be competitive, what it is to have brand, what it means to retain audiences, eyes on your video. All of these competitive and marketing and capitalism topics are really built into all of the creator guidance materials that exist. So there is an awkward tension when a creator tries to integrate the idea of financial recuperation. It feels jarring and weird and awkward, and I'm gonna fast forward through the ad copy because I hate listening to it. It's not that I don't want to support the creator, it's that it feels uncomfortable and unnatural, and it's a lot easier to just blame the brand and blame the system. I fear the day that I'm chatting with friends and they need to pause for a second to do an ad read. I hope this video was helpful. I really wanted to just examine some social dynamics and some of this digital phenomena with you. I'm no professor, but it's 2023. We should probably not be dumping things into this false dichotomy of healthy versus parasocial. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I would be especially keen to hear if you're someone that has found themselves with a fixation or an obsession, or just feeling weird about navigating parasocial things. I think that's way more common than people think, and I don't love the role of stigmatization in all of that, but maybe I'm biased towards my own lived experience with that. Anyway, I hope you have a good day. You deserve it. Bye.